Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 29 of the WeCOACH podcast on Wisp Sports. Every 2 weeks, we go one-on-one with some of the best women coaches, administrators, and industry leaders in the world of sports for insightful and inspiring conversations. I'm your host, Megan Kahn, Executive Director of WeCOACH. This podcast is a co-production of WeCOACH and Wisp Sports. Today's guest is one of the newest faces to grace the University of North Carolina campus. Courtney Banghart enters her first season as UNC head women's basketball coach. Let's chat with the 2015 Naismith National Coach of the Year and one of Fortune Magazine's World's 50 Greatest Leaders. Hi, Courtney. Welcome to the WeCOACH podcast.
Thanks for having me. 29th. I'm feeling very special.
I know. If only that was your age, right?
Yeah, it is.
I think it is. You might be able to pass for 29. I don't know.
That's right.
Well, you're just over 24 hours from the opening tip in new colors for you. So I appreciate you taking time for being here.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So we all know, it's well documented, your coaching career happened a bit by chance. A star for Dartmouth, two-time Ivy League champ, neuroscience major, led to a high school job in the DC area. Take us back to when you knew coaching was your calling.
You know, it's the hardest thing about coaching is there's not a linear path, right? And for an Ivy League grad, we like linear paths. So we like, you get an education and you work your way up through administration, or in athletic administration, you start sort of in a subservient role and then you continually evolve. And coaching isn't like that. It's, you're good. You stay good where you are and you hope opportunity rises and you surround yourself with people that can lift you up and can promote you. And so, to be honest, I went back to Dartmouth as a graduate student. I had them pay for my master's, and that was part of the impetus of me going. And when I went there, it was still what I was most passionate about, but my heart still didn't think it was a vocation. And I have to say, I got really lucky. I got a call from the Princeton athletic director, I should say, Gary Walters, literally 2 days after I presented my graduate thesis and a day after I turned 29. And to know that the athletic director at Princeton wanted to know if I had interest in the position. If he hadn't called, I don't know if I ever would have decided that coaching was a vocation. So I feel really lucky to have had people pull me through the business.
Well, and talk about that transition, right? You're a high school coach and then you're at Dartmouth for a couple of years and then you quickly find yourself in a head coaching job. Talk about what that transition was like and some of those learning curves in those first couple of years.
Yeah, having been a high school coach for 3 years at a boarding school, no less, so it sort of felt like an orphanage, is a great way to start because you hear your voice, you have to prepare, and you're the one that's, quote, in charge. Regardless of the level, that's an important thing to have kind of under your belt a little bit. And then going back as a graduate student and recruiting coordinator at Dartmouth, you get the grind of the job, right? There's so many tasks that cross your desk outside of just the X's and O's. And I learned that quickly. I think there's just something about not knowing necessarily that you're going to be ready to be a head coach. I remember I reached out to my peers who had been in college coaching a lot longer than me because of my high school stint. And they were concerned that it was career suicide, taking a job until you know you're ready. I think sometimes that's what women struggle with, is we want to make sure we're ready before we take on challenges. And I looked at it instead like, boy, if I'm not good at it, I'll only be about 34 and I'll be young enough to try something else in earnest and be able to build equity in that industry. And so I kind of took it less so out of a certainty and more so out of a risk and an opportunity. And I was young enough, I think, to make that risk. I wasn't attached to family. I wasn't attached to the area. And so, I came down with a little bit of trepidation, but I just sunk my teeth in and was willing to outwork. And the rest is history, as they say.
Well, awesome story, but you just gave up the ghost that you're not really 29.
Yeah, good point. You're that good at math. I understated you.
Unless you're very early in your career, you just made a remarkable run at Princeton, but went backward in time. I'm not sure. Let's talk about the remarkable run at Princeton. You're undefeated in 2015, National Coach of the Year. You end up winning the Ivy League's first NCAA tournament game in 2017. What are some of those greatest lessons and memories that you've taken away?
I think the concept of investing in yourself and trusting yourself and knowing that some jobs, a lot of jobs, you don't know how to do them until you're in them. And therefore, there's movement requires a risk. And that's just the nature of it, because until you do the job, you don't know if you can. But I think one of the things that I think a story that really identifies how I am as a coach, and I think how I've been successful, is the day, at that tournament game. So we're 30-0, and we got the highest seed ever for an Ivy League team with the 8 seed. And we need this tournament win more than anything, because if you go 30-0 in the regular season and you don't win in the NCAA tournament, you almost actually hurt the value of the Ivy League and the quality of the conference. So I felt enormous pressure out of obligation to the league to get that win more than any other game in my career. And the president of the United States, Barack Obama, was coming to the game. His niece was on my team. And right before the game, I had just, in the in the pregame room, I had said to the team, there's going to be about 18,000 fans here, and about 200 are going to be ours. Stay locked into me. I'm locked into you. Dance with the ones that brought you. All that type of stuff. And that wasn't just cliche. That was real, right? And then so they're coming out, and Barack arrives about 90 seconds before the game, and he walks by the other team's bench. That's where the entrance was. And the other team's coach did what any American should do, and that's shake the hand of the leader of the free world, and probably introduce himself and welcome him. And then you've got about 40 feet till he gets down to my bench, because he was sitting right behind our bench. Of course, those seats were already had picked out and arranged and safe, and my family was directly row right behind him. And at that time, at some point within that stretch, my players were going to come running to me because it was the end of the warm-up. And my biggest fear is that if I shook his hand, if my players had turned to run in that moment, I wouldn't have been locked into them. And so, after that win, a lot of people had asked, many media out, there was obviously a lot of media around the event, and they had said, what was it like to meet the president? And I had to say I didn't, but I stayed locked into my team, and we won. And so I think that sort of, you talk about how you go about the job at hand, and you don't always know how to do it, but you know what your why is, and you know what matters. And I think I've always been laser focused on those things.
Well, and that's probably, a key decision for you in making the leap to Chapel Hill, right? Talk about that driving force. Did you feel like you had reached a ceiling at Princeton?
I think part of it is I'm so forward thinking, and my biggest fear in life is I'm really fortunate. I'm not one of those that is afraid of failure. I'm actually afraid of regret, which is not a pretty thing to be afraid of either. But for me, the regret of my whole entire collegiate experience as a player, as an assistant, and as a head coach was going to be in the Ivy League if I didn't take another step. And I felt like I think I was worried that I would regret that, having not done a different level, whether it was pro, men, BCS, women, who knows. And so I just stayed open to not taking I didn't need it for my ego. So I was pretty careful about where. And it came with it, of course, an enormous risk, right? I left incredible job security. We were hammering everybody. I probably recruited the best class I've ever recruited in totality, our current freshmen at Princeton. And then, of course, I had locked up 3 really talented 20s as well. So that thing was set up for the next 5 or 6 years. And you leave a lot behind. And usually when you make changes, you leave good to get to great. I left great. And that was really hard. But at the same time, I tell my players and I urge my people to grow and be forward thinking and evolve and take on life's chapters as they come. And it's just at some point I felt like I wasn't practicing what I preach, and I wasn't living that truth. And so I'm really fortunate that when that time felt like it was a good time for my family, and a good place, it was a place as special as Carolina that called and believed in me. And I feel really lucky. Again, it was a job that pulled me. I didn't seek for it. So that I'm really lucky in that way.
Well, I know you're more determined than ever to hang another banner up in Carmichael. Can you give us a glimpse of what we can expect from the Tar Heels this season?
I think when you take over, there's a reason a job is available, right? There's a reason there's an opening, either because the coach left for something different, i.e. what happened at Princeton, that's a gold mine right now, or, because there's been some transition that maybe wasn't as smooth, right? And that's what I've inherited. And so it's going to take an enormous amount of persistence and an enormous amount of patience, both by me and by our staff and by our fans and by our players. It's going to take a clear push with not sacrificing the steps. And so in terms of what to expect this year, I think the unknown. I think I've got to be okay with that. And that is, I don't know how we're going to respond to the length of the season. I don't know how we're going to respond to the challenges. I know that I've asked them to stretch in a lot of ways, inside and outside the lines, because I don't want this job to be open again, right? And So there's some changes that have to take place inside the lines and outside the lines so that we're competing consistently at the level we want to compete at. So I don't know what to expect. What I hope is that it's a forward progress in both venues, on and off the court. Otherwise, it'll be a long year.
Well, you talk about that forward progress and what you do on a daily or weekly basis. How you break down your coaching philosophy if somebody would ask you?
I think it's understanding that you haven't taught it until they've learned it. And it's so easy to come into a program and say, gosh, even as we prepare to show the scout today, it doesn't matter what I show them. It matters what they can retain and what they can understand we're emphasizing. And so I really think when you're leading other people, it's about them, not you. And so for me, it's constantly with this new group, learning and eyes and ears open of how they take in information, how much information they can take in, and what I can hold them accountable to step by step. And so the philosophy is really that I coach a bunch of individuals to make a team. And so I don't want the pieces to get lost in the whole. And that is both individual, personnel based. I don't want our seventh man to get lost in the hole. I don't want our starter, our top guy to get lost in the hole. So I want each piece to be really critical and on a forward progress, but also in terms of like the details, the scouts and the practice prep. I don't want the parts, how important the parts are, to get lost in our hole either. So I think I'm really detail oriented in the pieces, and the whole then takes care of itself. Is that clear enough?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's clear that you built a winning culture at Princeton and you're attempting to do it again. Are there intentional things that you and your staff do on a daily or weekly basis that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think when you're building your team, again, it's not about you, right? And so for me, it's about how this team treats one another, how they respect one another, and how they respect the game, and how they respect themselves is your culture, right? If you respect yourself, you're going to continue through ups and downs to give your best, right? In terms of always. If you respect the game, you're going to pay attention to the progress and the process. If you respect each other, you're going to do things like talk on and off the court. You're going to do things like lead with empathy. You're going to listen, and so we talk about respect, about it. Just it contributes to it being a whole. It's the ultimate team sport. Very few team sports you play both ends equally, offense and defense. Very few team sports you can be 6'4" or 5'4" and be on the same team, right? Very few sports come from all backgrounds. So there's an incredible amount of diversity and empathy that basketball requires, skill set wise and otherwise. And so our team culture is very much the whole, but your piece being a part of who our whole is, what you bring, how you talk, how you listen. So we're still building our team culture because it needs everybody, and we're all in kind of different. We're all taking into the new at a different pace. So we're still building that, but what we built it when we're really good, it's because our culture will be really good, and that's what we're working on.
And then it can sustain the test of time, right? Yeah,
I mean that's the thing. Is it also can sustain transition. So, for example, when I told the Princeton folks that I was moving on. It was obviously the worst day of my life, but also, I told them if our culture in this locker room deteriorates because I left, then it was about me. So I wasted my time. I said, don't forget, in college athletics, 1/4 of you leave every year. You leave me every year, a group of the team, but our culture remains. And so when you leave the program, you want the culture to remain, right? You want to be an alum of a strong program. And so if our culture deteriorates because I have left, then the program was not a true program. It was a team. And it was the 12 teams I coached. Yeah, then it was the 12 teams I coached, and I want it to be a program. So I think you're going to see Princeton have a great year because I left a really strong culture, and it sustains, like as you said so articulately, it sustains the length of time.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat here.
Oh gosh, hit me.
When we're in it, and sometimes as a head coach, you have all the pressure in the world. You've already talked about some of the pressure and some of the hardest decisions you've had to make. Could you pinpoint one or two of the hardest decisions you've had to make in your coaching career?
Yeah, I mean, the first one that's really still poignant is the decision to leave Princeton. When it's a people business, so you've asked people to make decisions, to trust you and to join you, and then you're exiting. before that agreement was fulfilled. And so that was just heart-wrenchingly awful, because again, nothing's broken. It was just that I needed a new experience for me and my family, right? And then another hard decision is the balance. This is really basketball-y. So for all the listeners that are coaching their own sport, I hope you can draw an analogy to your sport. But the concept of control and freedom. If the whole team is dictated by me, I've got way too much control, and no one's ever going to play to their strengths if they're concerned about me all the time, right? Yet if you play with too much freedom, then there's the inconsistency of our personnel. As people, we're inconsistent. So then the inconsistency plagues your team. So that balancing that line between control and freedom is the hardest decision I make every single day in every single drill. What you emphasize, what you stop, what you value, how you value it, how you allow them to play through it, how you allow them to, what you break down, all that is just, those are decisions that coaches make every minute. That's really, really hard.
Well, it is. And that's why you get paid the big bucks, right?
There's got to be a reason, because I'm getting skinny and old in this job.
You're working too hard.
That's right.
What it takes.
Yeah. Especially when you take over a new job. Yeah. There's a lot of new, and so there's got to be a lot of you.
So what's been the biggest challenge since you arrived on campus?
I think it's just that. I think it's a lot of new. So it's got to be a lot of me, right? So a lot of the decisions that are crossing my desk every day, whether it's how do you want this office renovation or team room or lounge or film room renovation, or how do you handle this inconsistency in performance or behavior by our personnel? And also how do you show up for your staff and everything from the day-to-day communication to the gray of recruiting and the gray of personnel issues in your practice. I mean, it's just, there's so many decisions that cross your desk that it's, that part of it is both grueling and important, because a lot of it has to be through me until the culture's in place. So that's probably been the hardest.
Yeah. I'm over here shaking my head. I definitely can relate. And the seat you're in, your thumbprint has to be on everything, because it is your program. It is your vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you want to empower your pieces, and to empower your pieces, there needs to be clarity. And so I think sometimes people think empowering your pieces is letting them go do their job 100%, but they have to have some clarity about what needs to be done and how, and what the timeline is and what the quality is. And that's sort of what I'm leading every day. And then absolutely, I'm the best delegator on the planet, but I think it's because I operate in a position of clarity amongst my people.
What if you could hear from some of the top women in sports, like Jill Ellis, Dr. Jen Welter, LaChina Robinson, Lasia Clarendon, Kelly Anaway Perez, and Jenny Gilder? WeCOACH and Huddle have partnered to bring you this epic lineup in the first ever Breakthrough Summit designed to develop and inspire women in sport. Having positive female role models allows young girls to say, if I can see her, I can be her. Breakthrough Summit is free and open to anyone at any level. Tune in on your computer, laptop, tablet, or phone to watch this live online event. Mark your calendar for December 16th and register today at wecoachsports.org.
You've already mentioned a couple times how important family is to you, and you're a mom to 3 adorable little kiddos, twins Eli and Tucker, and adorable little Gray. With 3 toddlers and a new job, how in the heck do you balance it all right now?
Boy, it's like the team, right? You make sure you have a good team around you, and that's what I have. I've got we're a 2-parent family that is all in all the time, right? So it's not, boy, it's your turn. It's always our turn. Just like in a team, like it's not your turn to defend. It's our turn. It's not your turn to run the floor. It's our turn. And I think the way I coach, not to simplify it, is sort of the way I am in my family. It's just, it's never somebody else's turn. It's always our turn. And so the kids are at a great age to move. Part of the challenge at Princeton for me was that our practice time was from 5 to 7 p.m. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think a lot of people thought, well, of course, Carolina, just like all the other jobs that had reached out. Well, I can't believe she didn't leave. Maybe she just never wants to leave Princeton. It's like, I didn't want to leave Princeton for anything but the best. But I also knew that I cannot be at practice every day from the hours of 5 to 7 anymore. Like, my kids are now starting soccer and gymnastics and music and things that their life is now going to be centered around. And I want to be a part of that. So this job keeps me away from them enough through recruiting. And so when I'm actually home, I want to be home at a time where I can be at family dinner. And my little son Tucker was in the bathtub the other day and he said, Mom, I love North Carolina. And I said, well, me too. What do you love about it? And he said, we have family dinner every night. And when your 5-year-old looks at you like that, when his hair is like in a mohawk of soap, you know you've made the right decision. But yeah, the how I do it is, I don't know, this daylight savings for all the moms out there, like what? It's the worst because now they're at 5:15, not 6:15. But I know it's just a moment in time that I'm going to be this tired, and my heart couldn't be more full with the addition of other people to care for in my life.
When I remember not long ago, you had said to me you had 3 little ones and 3 different sizes of diapers, so they do grow quickly.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, now we have 3 different interests. So we've got a soccer player, we've got I don't even know what the other son is. He's kind of the cheerleader on the sideline. And then my daughter's my boss.
Hey, start them young.
Yeah, there you go. But I think I think what you're getting at though, Megan, is the work-life balance that I know a lot of us women have. I think the world sort of presents us as, boy, there's more men in certain industries because women are either afraid to move, afraid to take risks, or can't do it. And it's like, well, I think most people at this point are trying to marry well where they know it's a partnership. But I do think the work-life balance / we say here the work-life synergy is that you just have to know your why. And I remember when I had my twin boys, that was the 30-0 year. And I said to Craig Robinson, who was a parent of a current player, I was like, I know my kids I'm going to want to include them, but I don't want my team to think I'm not as invested in them. And he literally almost cut me off and said, I want my daughter to see you as a working mom. I want her to see it work, and how you do it. And so I literally brought those twin boys on every single road trip on the bus they did not miss one game home or away. Now they were in car seats, so it was easier, but that was that 30-0 year where literally, whether it was to Cancun or the long bus ride to Cornell, they were on every single trip. And my players saw that the work-life synergy of being a mom is real, and you can do it. And so for all the people that are listening that are bosses, recognizing that it doesn't mean less of a focus on what their job they're doing, that they're also parents. It means there's more to talk about. There's more genuine selflessness in that person that they've had to kind of live every day, not about them. So I hear a lot of times that, well, my boss, I could never have kids. I don't think you should be working. I don't think you should be working for those people, in my opinion.
Do you think being a mom has changed you as a coach?
I think it's made me a bit more efficient, because I can't be on my phone while my kids are in the bathtub, right? I can't be on my phone at team dinner, and all of that recruiting. So I mean, at family dinner. So I think it's made me more efficient. I think for a lot of people, it makes them more generally balanced. I'm pretty balanced. As you know, Megan, I like to travel. I like to read. I like to watch hoop. I mean, I'm pretty balanced, but I do think it forces you to have a balance that isn't sometimes judged as lack of drive. And I think it actually is. It's just a balance that makes you better in the moment. So I'm much more, I shouldn't say much more, but I'm more intentional for sure when I'm at the office that I'm not wasting time. Like I'm not perusing a website. My Facebook game is below average, because I've got to be much more efficient. So yeah, it's maybe more efficient for sure.
What are your success habits?
I think I've done a good job getting people outside of industry, that I've let in my life through in my insecurities and in my positives to be able to pick up the phone and say, I'm struggling or I need your advice. So I say outside of industry because I think those people sometimes can see your business as they can realize how unimportant it actually is sometimes. And so I think I've done a good job creating an army of support that are people that I've let in, that I can be truly me too. And I let them in enough to know, like I said, my insecurities and my happiness so that they can kind of work me through some hard times. When I get really stressed, I think I'm good at recognizing that the other things in my life, reading and exercise, make me better. And so I force myself to be a half hour later into work because I'm going to go for a longer run or something. I'm very disciplined in that way. So I think I try to take care of myself physically, whether it's through reading and working out. And then when I can't get out of my own way in my own head, I think I'm really good at letting the people outside of my own family help me through the hard times.
When you mentioned letting others in from the outside, what influential, I'm speaking specifically about women here, what influential women have played a significant role in your life?
Oh man, my very best friend in the whole world is Patty Phillips, who's over at Women Leaders. And talk about someone out of industry, sort of in industry in the athletic world, but out of industry in terms of not on the day-to-day coaching, although she reminds me she was an NAIA coach many, many years ago. But when I say letting someone in, I mean, you just gotta, you can't just, she knows all of me. She knows the parts that make me insecure. She knows the parts that make me happy. She knows the parts that I'm good at. She knows my weaknesses, right? Then someone can actually help you. And so I think that therefore I can call her when I'm overwhelmed, either in this transition or job, or I need advice about something. So she's someone who's been really great. When I think about other coaches, Corey Close over at UCLA is one of the more selfless people on the planet. She cares about UCLA with all her heart, but her heart's big enough to also care about the success of the people that she cares about. And she's been someone that I can reach out to about especially stuff in the business or just the grind of that. So she's been great. A great mentor and more so a friend to me in this business. So, and then, people that you wouldn't know that aren't you're not familiar with maybe, but even just different athletic directors, Sandy Barbers and Julie Herman and have been really supportive. Vicki Chun, as I was thinking about transitioning from Princeton, you have to let people in and trust them enough. I'm not going to tell anybody, but they have been people that I kind of have met through the industry or whatnot, that I trusted enough to say, these are the things that I'm concerned about this institution or that institution. Help me think through the questions I should be asking. And so I think, again, out of industry as athletic directors and things, just being willing to be open. I think being willing to be vulnerable. The more successful we become, people think we know it all. I'm very good at knowing that I don't. And so I think I've been able to authentically get people in my life, whether it's administrators, athletic directors, or Patty, or people that see me as the real me, and I let them in enough to be able to help me as I need them.
What's important, especially in the positions that we're in, it can be lonely at the top, especially for women, because there's not a lot of people that look like us necessarily around us. So important to have that inner circle that you can count on.
And knowing that you're responsible for creating it. And it's not just how often you call, it's the quality of how much you let them in. I think that's something people think I've got really important relationships. It's like, well, I let people in. I'm not perfect, and they know it, and I'm okay with sharing that.
Good advice for all of our listeners right there.
Good. That's what I'm here for.
Let's talk about, you serve on the WBCA board of directors. You obviously have an influence on the game itself. You've been a coach with the U23 national team a couple years ago. If you could look through a crystal ball and predict what women's basketball would look like in 5 years from now, what would you like to see?
I think there'll be much more parity. I do think that. I also think that there'll be more women. I think there'll be more women on the men's side, even in college. If you think about college men's basketball, there are plenty of men who are playing college basketball who are coming from mom-only families. So the people they have been around and trusted and listened to and talked to are women, and yet there's no women on their staffs. So I think that will change dramatically. Once one does it, they'll see how helpful it is. I mean, if I was coaching on the men's side, if I was a guy, I would hire a woman to be my recruiting coordinator immediately. So I think that will be a change as it's happening on the pro side. But on the women's basketball side, I do think there'll be more parity. I think the way in which these kids are connected now through USA Basketball and things at an earlier age. I think there's more programs that they're willing to either go together with or want to see new programs grow. And I think there's going to be some really tremendous pillars in our game that are going to leave coaching because of their age or because they're looking for a different journey. And that's going to open up also some other opportunities for other coaches. So yeah, I think there's enough smart people at the board level in the WBCA that are tracking on trends and are trying to make sure that we're steering ourselves towards the future. That I have great confidence in our game, or I would leave it. I tell you that. I've always thought about what would be my third chapter and when that will happen. And if I feel like our game isn't moving in the right direction, I'll leave the next day.
Well, I think you're right. I think the leadership of our game is in good hands.
Yeah, and Lynn Holzman. I mean, these are people that care about our game and have been a part of it for a long time. And they're relevant enough on the men's side to know the do's and don'ts. And I think we're aligned in certain areas and we separate in other areas. I think it's all I know from being on the board, being on the oversight committee at the NCAA. There are a lot of people that are very smart, that care a lot about our game. And that's a recipe for success, in my opinion.
And it'll be interesting to see what name, image, likeness, how that affects, especially women's basketball, just because it is the premier sport.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? So if you're thinking about it, I'm worried that what it does to athletic departments, because if you're thinking of a local sponsor in town, let's say, who gives money to the athletic department to try to drive business there before games or something, they might now decide instead to host hey, Monday night, so-and-so, Cole Anthony on the men's basketball side at Carolina is going to be at the X place in town. And they no longer need to give their money to Carolina because they can get Cole Anthony to come and they can pay him for that, right? So now there might be less sponsors coming into the universities, and we rely on sponsorship a lot of the way. So I think there's lots of different ways that it might be affected, and we're not quite sure. I'm not at all negative to progress and changes. And so I don't know enough about it. I am concerned. I have a genuine concern about how that would affect the women's side because of budgeting, right? But, like I said, I think there are smart people that are caring about the right things and hope that makes a big difference.
Talk about the unknown. That's definitely the unknown for us, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's kind of been, we weren't allowed to vote until we were, right? So we've been involved. We sort of have been a battle-tested population for a long time. And as our society evolves, it usually evolves with our help. And let's not forget that. And so, as we evolve in the collegiate athletic space, why not evolve with our help? And I have confidence that it will.
Absolutely. So, Courtney, we end every episode with rapid fire. I get to put you on the hot seat for 5 questions. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, hold on. So I got to answer quickly. I'm starting to stretch here in my chair. I'm good.
Yep. Take a sip of your tea, whatever. You got it. Besides the kids, because that doesn't count in this question, what keeps you awake at night?
The progress of my pieces, making sure that they're moving forward.
What's your favorite place you've ever played or coached a game?
Oh, that's a great question. My favorite place I ever played or coached. Probably at Maryland when we won the NCAA tournament game, because that was so special to the league. I remember that feeling walking in. I remember the feeling walking out.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite leadership book?
Oh, I've got too many. I literally have too many. Now that I'm rebuilding this program, The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh was a great book that I have reread since taking the job. These are old 49ers.
Do you have any game day superstitions?
No. I know, it's so boring. No. I just want to score more than they do.
And maybe a run, like at the morning of game day or something?
Unless I'd rather sleep in. No, yeah. No, I'm not very routinized as a human. And I think that might be a strength. It might be a weakness. I'm not sure.
All right, last one. If we snuck up on you and you're on the road recruiting and we looked in your bag, what snacks would we find?
Unfortunately, nothing. That is that is my biggest weakness. I need to get serious. Food is a requirement. It's like sleep. It's not just a genuine good idea. It's a scientific thing. I just never think to pack a snack. And so I'm the one sitting there starving. Like I'm actively starving while I'm recruiting. So hopefully,
no wonder you get so skinny.
So as I age, I'm hoping that I can realize that just basic needs need to be met by yourself. So let's have this be in this moment in this podcast. Next time I see you can ask me what's in my bag, and I will have a snack.
I'm counting on it in New Orleans at the Final Four.
That is very stressful. Well, I don't carry a purse, so the Final Four is not fair because I don't have my bag with me. You said recruiting.
That is very true.
So recruiting, you're hearing it here. I will have a snack of some kind in my bag moving forward because I was like last night. I was up in Indianapolis and I was starving, and it was so controllable. It's just aggravating.
Maybe your kids one day will get to a point where they're packing you a little snack lunch instead of the other way around.
I did. I will say it's embarrassing that you'd say that. I made their lunch this morning, and which is such a hassle for all the moms out there, isn't it? It's the worst. And I grabbed a snack out of their snack drawer when I got in from my run because I knew I'd be hungry today, and I've got a tight day of scheduling. And so I actually bent as low as to go to their bottom drawer, their snack drawer. We always say respect the snack drawer. I respected it, but I took from it, man. That's not good. So that's all I got for you.
I don't know. You're a mom. You're entitled to do that, I think.
I put the snacks in, but they're like the peanut butter crackers that are, I don't know. I mean, I can do better than that. Anyway, I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy some Luna bars. I'm going to put them in my office, and then I'm always going to have them. So you heard it.
You heard it here.
You heard it
Right,
here.
Courtney, I'm going to let you get on your way. I know you got a big game tomorrow. I just want to say thank you so much for all you do for the game itself. Fantastic role model for other young girls hoping to follow in your footsteps. We'll be cheering on the Tar Heels this season.
I want to thank you for all you're doing for the just women's sports in general, not just basketball, but all of them. And I know how much work you've put in the direction of the WeCOACH is really fun to watch. And no, I stand ready to be helpful in any way.
Thanks, Courtney.
Happy holidays from Wisp Sports.
The show notes for this episode can be found on our show page at wisports.com. Don't miss the next WeCOACH podcast episode. Subscribe to Wisp Sports on your podcast app to catch each new episode dropping every other Thursday. Until next time, all sports, one voice, WeCOACH.